We have lots to talk about here today, including all kinds of trade and free agent rumors heading into the offseason. On the trade front, we're taking a look at the Maple Leafs, talking about Marner and Tavares, both some updates on both those scenarios, plus we have some updates regarding Jacob Markstrom and where he might be heading, leaving the Calgary Flames, some big updates out of the Columbus Blue Jackets, lots of UFA rumblings as well regarding Matt Duchene, some of the Vancouver Canucks players like Lindholm, Zadorov, Joshua. The Leafs apparently have a goaltender that they have a mutual interest in, you could say, for a free agency as well. So all kinds of interesting things. The latest on Marty Necas, the cap friendly sale, and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to talk about today. A variety of UFA rumblings, trade rumblings, and other news around the NHL. One quick update as well. Yesterday, we talked about the fact that the Washington Capitals organization were purchasing the website of Cap Friendly. Of course, everybody in the hockey world knows Cap Friendly, at least most of us do. I know a lot of us access it quite frequently. I know with what I do here, I want to, of course, do a lot of research for my videos. I access Cap Friendly probably 10 times a day, at least it feels like, sometimes more. A terrific resource. And I know a lot of us are bummed by the fact that the Capitals are purchasing it, trying to make sense of it all, because obviously once they own it, it's going to go dark sometime in early July. It won't be available to the public anymore. So essentially, a lot of teams have their own kind of infrastructure in place for something similar like what Cap Friendly provides, but not a lot of teams have that. A lot of teams actually rely on Cap Friendly. According to Jeff Merrick, there's some teams out there kind of somewhat in panic mode right now that they are not going to have access to that either. Like some of these teams pay sites like Cap Friendly and Puckpedia for their data, and they're not going to have that option anymore. So the Capitals are essentially reportedly, I guess you could say, a bit behind the times, so to speak, and instead of taking the amount of time it would take to build their own infrastructure, it's faster for them to purchase this. And some of the key people behind the scenes with Cap Friendly very well might be joining their organization as well. So this might not only be a good opportunity for them to sell and obviously cash out for their hard work, which is great work, and I'd love to see that. Might be good opportunities for them as well with roles with an NHL organization. So as much as that all kind of sucks for us other people who won't have access to it anymore, it is good for them. Like I said, we do have other resources for right now, like Puckpedia as a main one. They're probably going to be making some updates, and there's already lots of other analytics people talking about building other sites. So it's not like we're going to lose completely access to this kind of stuff. It's just going to change. But I find it funny that the league personally hasn't, either bought the site or done something similar, considering they consider this data, private and confidential, which I'm like, considering what gets reported out there, I don't know why. To me, they're way behind the times, but is it surprising to hear that Bettman and the NHL are behind the times? Not even in the least. So hopefully someday we'll get there. Of course, tonight is Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, Panthers versus Oilers. We saw the Panthers take Game 1, 3-0. Oilers played a real solid game. A couple mistakes that they did make ended up in the back of their net. Sergei Bobrovsky was amazing. We all seen that game, know what happened. Game 2 tonight, hard to say how things go down, but it's hard to imagine that the Oilers can't be happy with their game and will feel good going into this game anyways. They are making some lineup changes by the looks of things. Cody Ceci will be a scratch tonight, and they're putting in Vincent Desharnais, so they certainly want his size back in there as well, which also breaks up Nurse Ceci, which to me is a great thing. So that will be good. I believe Nurse is skating with Desharnais, which is, we'll see how that goes. Should be a better pairing, I think, overall. There's also a possibility that Carrick gets back into the lineup. He's apparently a game-time decision. Expectation is if he does go, that Corey Perry may be the guy that comes out. So we'll have to see there. No changes for the Panthers, of course, won their game. I know a lot of people say, as much as the Oilers played a strong game and have lots to be, feel positive about and build off of here, it's also hard to imagine that the Panthers don't play better. As much as the Oilers were quite dominant and were goalied by Bobrovsky, there was obviously a lot of games this year where you've seen the Panthers do much better. So you have to think that Maurice is going to make some adjustments. The guys will get back playing stronger, and that the Oilers might not have that ability to play as good. So we're going to have to see as each teams adjust. But certainly would be massive for the Panthers to go up 2-0. The Oilers can't go home down 2. That would be a massive hole to come back from at this stage of the playoffs. So the odds are certainly not favorable for teams to go down 2-0. So we'll see where it goes. Game goes here in a couple hours' time. I'm not sure if this video will hit YouTube before the game starts, but if it does, certainly watch it for sure. In case if you are following the PWHL as well, tonight is their second annual PWHL Draft. All kinds of great talent expected to be picked in tonight's draft to join the league as well. Some top players like Sarah Fillier, Daniel Serdachny, Keila Barnes, Hannah Bilka, and several others. Returning Amanda Kessel coming back to hockey after taking some time off as well. Will be a very interesting time. All 6 teams will be able to add a lot of terrific talent. The draft is not on one of the big networks. It is available worldwide through their YouTube channel. So certainly check that out if you're interested. Of course, lots of other rumblings, current UFA trade, all kinds of stuff. The offseason is really getting more and more busy, you could say. One UFA rumbling we came across today is that Matt Duchene sounds like he will have a good opportunity to stay with the Dallas Stars. Not a given, of course, but we know he signed there on a 1-year cheap deal, $3 million after his buyout with the Nashville Predators. I know based on what he said, he was completely shocked to be bought out, did not see it coming one bit. And obviously because of that, was willing to take less money because he's still getting paid from Nashville, right? So at the same time, his numbers weren't the greatest the last year before that and so on. So he had a pretty good year in Dallas. He was a good fit there, knows that they're a team that's competitive and they're obviously very close. They're considered a cup contender this year. They won the Western Conference by regular season. Unfortunately, didn't win the West in the playoffs. But lots to like about the future of the Dallas Stars. So clearly he's interested in staying. And word is that he would be willing to kind of give them another sweet contract, if you will, team-friendly one, to remain. Obviously, I would suspect this one will be a little bit longer. Hard to say how many years exactly, but definitely multiple years instead of one. He himself in an interview said that at this stage of his career, it's not all about money. He's made $75 million throughout his career. He's well off that way. He's more interested in trying to get himself in a good spot to win. And that's obviously something that, like I said, Dallas is very close to. So there's a good chance we'll see Matt Duchene re-up in Dallas for maybe less than he could have got on the open market. He's obviously still getting paid from the Predators, too, for the next few years, as that buyout will be a while before it's all said and done with. On another UFA note, Vancouver Canucks appear to be at risk to lose 3 key UFAs for sure, and Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, and Dakota Joshua. The reports on all 3 of these players is that they're not really in the ballpark to getting a deal done. I mean, Joshua might be a little bit more likely, but Lindholm, it was reported they were willing to go to 7x7, and that doesn't seem to be anywhere near good enough. Remember, Lindholm turned down a 7x9 deal in Calgary. That was not a lot. I guess we could say less about the money and more about just not wanting to be there. At this point, I'm not sure anybody's going to give Lindholm 9 after the year he had, but I can see him getting maybe 7x8. That might be a possibility. So they are, certainly lower than what he's going to expect to get on the open market. So there was already Instagram pictures of him kind of cleaning out where he was staying, and kind of his, I believe his spouse saying like goodbye to Vancouver. They were moving because of contract or whatnot. Things can always change, but not looking good on Lindholm at all to stay in Vancouver. Hard to say where he's going to end up, but I have to think that one of the top contenders, if they can make it fit cap-wise, will be the Boston Bruins. They've been interested in this player for the better part of a year, especially after losing Patrice Bergeron. They get a guy like Lindholm, who's a really good two-way player. He's not Patrice Bergeron by any means, but he is one of the better players at the 200-foot game than that there is available. So certainly I suspect that he would be a terrific fit there. Zadorov, there was reports he was looking for 5x5. I don't know. There's also reports saying that he's willing to give a bit of a discount. I know Friedman said that he'll take a little less to stay in Vancouver because he really likes it, but it's got to be somewhat close to his number. And right now it just doesn't look like they're anywhere near that. Joshua, there's some reports that he might get $4 million, which I think is crazy on the open market. I know a lot of the analytics people are projecting he'd get more like 2.5 to 3. So to him to get all the way to 4 is definitely an overpayment. There were some rumors about Detroit. I can't confirm how likely that is or if there's even anything to that, but we'll see. Right now, it seems like the Canucks' top priority is trying to figure out if they can sign Philip Hronek, who, of course, is a restricted free agent. He's likely looking at a long-term deal, something comparable to Hughes is what the reports have indicated for some time. We'll see. I know Rick Dollywell also mentioned that Jalen Chatfield might be an option or a player that Vancouver will be very interested in should he make it to free agency as well with the Hurricanes. So, of course, his role has increased there the past couple of years, and he's come a long way. And certainly a return to Vancouver might make sense if the dollars and cents work. So we'll see on that front. Another big UFA rumor as well connects Jets goaltender Laurent Brossoit to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And there's some that are saying there's a mutual interest between the both parties to do a contract when they're able to on July 1st. And as we all know, tampering does not exist in the NHL, right? Teams and agents and players, none of that talks ever happens before July 1st. Like, the fact that on July 1, as soon as the market opens in the first hour, there's, tons of contracts. That's purely just a coincidence, right? So Brossoit, makes a lot of sense. He's been a really good goalie the past few years. Like, he's a bit of a, the early part of his career wasn't the greatest, but since his time, couple stints in Winnipeg and time in Vegas, have been quite solid. And to me, he does make sense for the Leafs. So rather than spend a bunch of money, because they have been rumored to be one of the teams interested in Jacob Markstrom. But, look at what they're going to have to give up to get him. Is Brossoit a better option for them? I mean, really, if you look at the way Brossoit has played, you could argue that it's not a bad option at all. They could probably sign him. They probably don't have to give him big term, give him a couple-year contract. Word is he's looking for somewhere around a $3 million or so mark, which is a nice raise for him, and he wants to go to a team where he can get more starts. Ultimately, playing behind Connor Hellebuyck, which he's quite used to doing, and they've had a great working relationship together, good friends and everything like that, but he wants to play. It's just that simple, and he's been good. He's been called upon for sure, and 1A, 1B scenario with him and Joseph Wall in Toronto next year certainly is not something that would be out of the question here. I think it would be a really solid option. I know there was some talk as well with the Leafs that Marty Jones might be willing to re-sign to be their number 3 goalie, same kind of role he had this year. I don't know for sure if that gets done, but there was the belief out there was some talks that it was something he might be interested in doing. So we'll see as we get closer to free agency if that becomes a thing. I do think it's probably fair to say he's going to leave Winnipeg playing behind Connor Hellebuyck. He's just, like I said, as much as he likes Hellebuyck, he likes the team, and he wants to play more. It's just that simple. He's not going to get it there, so we'll see where he goes. But Toronto's a real possibility. I know onto some trade talk out there. Lots of things out there right now. I know with Columbus, new GM, president running the show there, Don Waddell, in an exclusive interview he recently did with Brian Hedger, the Dispatch. He basically says that everything is on the table. There's basically nothing that he won't consider. Although I do think it's fair to say some of their most prized young players and prospects will probably not get moved. I would think Adam Fantilli, for example, Denton Matejchuk, Gavin Brindley. I would think that these guys are probably not guys that they would want to move. But he says essentially that they've been rebuilding for too long. That this is a team that needs to take a big step forward and have a change in direction, which I 100% agree with. Couldn't agree more. But it's not going to be easy for them to do. Obviously, some names that came up, Elvis Merzlikins. We know that he is a guy that requested trade out of there. Will that come to be? I know when I heard Don Waddell speak to, I believe it was Jeff Merrick after on the Jeff Merrick show when he first got hired last week, he was saying that Merzlikins was a goalie that he one time tried to trade for. So somebody that he is, obviously was followed closely and at one point at least was very fond of his talent. So again, hard to say, right? Patrick Laine is another name that's out there. We've heard some talk about Laine, Montreal. It's hard to say. I know we've kind of narrowed down to some of the top young players that the Habs might be targeting, because we know Ken Hughes and Jeff Gorton are likely going to take a swing and bring another sub 25, 20, 22 to 25-year-old player into their mix. Ideally, somebody who can be a top 6 guy and play with their existing young talent there. Line to me does make some sense. I don't know that Trevor Zegras does. I don't know that Marty Necas is going to end up there, although there is interest for sure. But a guy like Capo Caco or a guy like this year with Laine might make more sense and be a lot cheaper. So Laine comes with an expensive contract, but the asking price to get him won't be a lot. At least I wouldn't think. So we'll see. But there's also been talk that came up based on the sentiment from that interview. There's some wondering if they may actually go as far as even talking to Johnny Gaudreau as well. Obviously, he's got lots of trade protection. Not going to go anywhere without his consent. But, it hasn't exactly worked out. It was a surprise free agent signing that took the whole market by shock a couple of seasons back. And, at this point, it's, you got to make you wonder if he's even happy there. His numbers are down. The team hasn't done well. Is it time for a change? We'll see on that front. Elliotte Friedman on the Jeff Merrick show today did say that things around Marty Necas is picking up. He didn't want to use the words heated up, but lots more activity for sure. It sounds pretty likely that at this point, there was, I guess, even as late as a few days ago, there were some that thought maybe Carolina would find a way to keep him, but that's not looking that way anymore. Obviously, there's been lots of smoke around this player and whether or not he's going to get moved. Lots of teams have been rumored to be interested. Like I said before, I wouldn't rule out Boston. I wouldn't rule out Vancouver being in there. I kind of half wondered about Columbus with Don Wendell obviously having a lot of familiarity with this player as well, and him saying that the team needs to take a step forward and stop rebuilding. Well, Necas is a more of an established player that could step in and have an impact. I wonder if they would talk about, Line A Necas type of trade. Line A's value is not what it used to be, so it might be complicated from that sense, but I have often wondered about Line A as the last couple of years where his hasn't really been that 40-goal guy like he was in Winnipeg. If eventually making it to Carolina to play with, because they have a lot of Finns there and guys that he's played with in the past, I wonder if that might be a good spot for him to kind of rejuvenate. But we'll see. Obviously, that would not be a one-for-one trade. The value just would not be there right now. But you got to wonder if something like that could come to be. But talk around Necas definitely picking up. I know last week Frank Saravalli had said that he wouldn't be shocked if it was done within a week. Well, we're just a little bit past that. That hasn't happened, but something that we could see well ahead of the draft by the looks of things. Certainly, lots to talk around Jacob Markstrom. We talked yesterday how it's not only a case of him kind of wanting to be traded, but he's made it known, according to some, and Kevin Woodley would be one that would know, that who had reported on this on the radio yesterday, that he wants out of Calgary. It's not just a matter of hoping he gets out, he wants it for sure. I know yesterday in the Markstrom video we talked about 3 teams with Toronto, Ottawa, and New Jersey. The belief is though that the Devils are by far the front runners, like we talked about earlier. I think it's more likely the Leafs target free agency and go for a guy like Broissoit. Doesn't mean for sure that's going to happen. We know the connection from Brad Treliving to Markstrom, but it just seems that it's not as likely to happen when it comes to Ottawa. There's lots of reports saying they're being very aggressive in there. But again, so far it sounds like the Devils have the edge in what they can offer. So we'll see on that front. I know the Senators are also looking at other goaltenders as well. As Elliotte Friedman said yesterday, pretty much any goalie trade conversations out there, they're involved in some capacity trying to figure out what they can do with their goaltending. I know there's been a lot of talk that they will also be very interested in Linus Ullmark in Boston. I don't know if that can happen or not, but there's certainly high interest on the Ottawa side to make it happen. But right now, it looks like Markstrom to New Jersey is the more likely scenario that plays out. Now, a couple notes on the Leafs. A couple of things that I found very interesting today. One, on Mitch Marner, comments from Frank Saravalli on his Daily Rundown podcast, basically says that he feels that the Leafs are kind of eventually over time here kind of back Marner into a corner and just kind of say that essentially whether it's now or in 8 months from now, your time here is up. So, we want to move on. We're not going to offer you a new contract. Why don't you let us just move you now, find a new home, and let's just be done with this. That's kind of, I'm summarizing what he said. That's not word for word, but basically he did say that he feels like the Leafs will back him into a corner and essentially kind of try to force his hand to waive, which I know there's been lots of different reports out there about whether or not he will waive. We saw there was reports yesterday which made sense. I talked about from comments from the Steve Stimmons article saying they're not going to go to him and ask him to waive unless they have an offer. They're not going to go there. So the fact that we haven't heard it yet, that it's not leaked out there that they've had these conversations, it doesn't mean it won't. It absolutely does not. But according to Saravalli, he just seems more convinced than ever that it is going to happen. Just a matter of where and when, and that they're going to slowly back him into a corner and to kind of try their best to force him to want to do that. But interesting comments as well from Jeff Merrick today on his radio show talking to Elliotte Friedman, wondering if there is a chance that John Tavares could be the guy to go instead. Now, he says essentially that he had a conversation with somebody who was saying that, not necessarily specific to Tavares, but saying how Utah is in a unique position, this new Utah team, because they're a pretty good situation cap-wise, that they could really, they have a lot of top young players, all right? And they're a team that's they want to make a splash. They want to take a step forward with the new team this year, and essentially adding some veterans would be a great way to do that. So like not just any veterans, but like some really top-notch veterans, some name power, so to speak, as well. And certainly, guys on short-term contracts, like, that have a year left or that they could extend for 1 or 2 years, things like that. They could offer more money than other teams and try to say, hey, come help us build this new franchise here in Utah. We'll pay you very handsomely for doing so on a short term. And he wonders if they could convince John Tavares to waive his no move to go to Utah for the final year of his contract if they offered him a very healthy 2-year extension, for example. Because we know if he stays in Toronto, if there's any chance at all that the Leafs re-sign him beyond his current contract, it's not going to have any choice but to be significantly less money than he currently makes today. There's no doubt about that. And I think everybody that's a realist understands that. I'm sure he likely realizes that too. But how low will he have to go to stay? I don't know. As I would imagine, his desire to stay will likely still be there. I don't know what the Leafs' position will be on this, of course, when the contract ends, assuming he makes it there. But just an interesting tidbit to see, would a team like Utah kind of try to woo some of these veteran guys that might be making big money to kind of come to their team for a year or two and help them kind of, get over the hump, take a step forward, maybe try to be a playoff team. They can certainly, offer them some big bucks on a short-term basis here to kind of, upstart this new franchise. So we'll see. I don't know. Personally, I know when they were talking about it on the radio today, Friedman said that he doesn't think Tavares would want to do that. That it was more likely that Tavares probably will not want to waive and go anywheres, and that he'll likely want to ride things out and kind of reevaluate when the contract is done, which I do think is more likely as well. I think, like I said, it makes more sense if they're going to get somebody to waive Marner, because we know that Marner would have much longer playing career left than Tavares. Obviously going to make a bigger money for a longer period of time as well. And it just makes more sense if you're going to move on to do so sooner than later. So we'll see what happens here. I don't know about Tavares going to Utah, but I thought it was an interesting comments from Eric on his program today. I'd like to know what everybody else thinks as well. Let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.